Senate will come to order. Chief Clerk, please call the roll.
Roll call, day 19, Friday, February 7th, 2025. Anderson. Here. Barlow. Present. Boner. Brennan. Here. Case. Present. Cooper. Here. Craigo. Here. Crum. Here. Dockstetter. Here. Driscoll. Here. French. Here. Garou. Here. Hicks. Here. Hutchings. Ide. Here. Jones. Here. Kolb. Landon. Here. Larson. Here. McEwen. Here. Nethercott. Olson. Here. Pappas. Here. Pearson. Rothfuss. Here. Salazar. Here. Schuler. Here. Scott. Here. Smith. Here. Steinmetz. Here. Garou.
Excused.
Excused. President Beitman.
Here.
Mr. President, 30 present, 1 excused.
Thank you, Ellen. Chaplain of the day is Pastor Blake Denlinger from Northwoods Presbyterian Church.
Let us pray. Almighty God, our Creator, the earth is yours and all its fullness, the world and those who dwell therein, for you have founded the world and established it. You have made all that we see and the eyes through which we see it. It is you who have made us, and not we ourselves. And so we come humbly before you, our Creator, and seek your help today. Help those gathered here today in all of their labors, the senators and the staff. You who made the mind, give clarity, we pray, to their thinking. You who made the mouth, help them to speak wisely and well. You who made the heart of each one here, guide their hearts that they may act from pure motives and with the best of intentions. Give energy and endurance and efficiency at the end of a long week, that those doing their work today may work wisely and well. Give success to their labors, for you have called them to this work. The earth is yours, but you have entrusted authority over this part of it to those gathered here today. Thank you for their work and their willingness to serve the people of Wyoming. Give them success in this calling. And all this we ask for the good of our state and for the glory of you, the Creator who has made each one here and called them to this role. And all this I ask, gracious Father, in the name of Jesus Christ, who lives and reigns with you and the Holy Spirit, one God, forever and ever. Amen.
Amen.
Senator Ralph, lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, Pastor Blake, it was nice having you here this week, and we really appreciate all you've done for us and your great sermons to us and guiding us in prayer. We have this for you, sir, a token of our appreciation along with a coin from Wyoming. So we hope you join us again. Don't be a stranger around here. Thank you, sir. Reading correction and approval of journal.
Mr. President, your journal committee reports that the journal of February 6, 2025 has been read and recommends that it be approved. Senator Crum, Chairman.
Are there any objections? Hearing none, the report is adopted. Senator Barlow.
Mr. President, privilege of the floor.
Granted.
Mr. President, we're honored today to have First Lady Jenny Gordon and the Wyoming's Youth Advisory Council here. And ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you a little bit about the Wyoming Youth Advisory Council. They're hosted today by the First Lady that represent Wyoming's foster youth and their interests and hopes to influence program development from across the state. They are here represented by both current and former foster youth who are collaborating with state agencies, policymakers, and the community stakeholders taking action to support and enhance the foster care system in Wyoming. So if you'd please welcome First Lady Jenny Gordon and the Youth Advisory Council. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Barlow. Welcome to the Senate, First Lady. We will be on our best behavior. All right. Where are we at? Physician's Assistant of the Day is Terry Marceau from Douglas again. Terry, thank you so much for being here again. We appreciate your service to our center. All right. Yes, Senator Guru.
Thank you, Mr. President. May I have the privilege of the floor?
Yes.
Got two. One, it's great to see the First Lady here. I heard she was not feeling well, and I'm glad that she's with us. I'm glad she's feeling better. Good to see you. And, Mr. President, I got this note this morning, and I wanted to pass it along because I think it might just have bearing. It's kind of like your jokes of the day and little stories, but if I may, just for a moment. It says, when I was in college, my mother was in the Wyoming legislature. The House passed a resolution that said the state should deny issuing driver's licenses to any male with long hair. I reacted with anger. My mom smiled and said something like, let them have their moment. She was right. The legislature ended up looking silly, not people with long hair. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Senator Hicks?
Mr. President, it's come to my attention that there was an incident of theft last night here, and I just want to bring it to people's attention. I was visiting with the doorman earlier this morning, and many of you have seen these cattle running around in the building, and there was a whole herd of them last night out there in the hallway, and somebody rustled those, Mr. President, and so, but because they weren't branded, I don't know how we're going to investigate this incidence of theft and rustling here in the Senate chambers, but I would encourage every member, if you see a herd of these little dairy cows running around someplace in the building or someplace's desk, please report them to the doorman immediately so they can reclaim their herd.
We will alert the brand inspector. Do you have one over here?
Mr. President, tagging on to that, you're lucky it's cattle. You know, we hang horse thieves, so do not take the horses.
Hands off the horses. All right, duly noted. Okay, today in sports history. Oh, this is a good one. My secretary knows who I like. 1956, Gordie Howe became the first player in Detroit Red Wings franchise history to score 300 career goals in a 3-2 win over the Chicago Blackhawks. Mr. Hockey. Boy, that was a while ago. Does anybody know what a Gordie Howe hat trick is? A goal, assist, and a fight. He made it very popular. All right, quote for the day. What do you do today? What you do today can improve all your tomorrows. Ralph Marston. In honor of our guest today, do you know why the Wyoming basketball players stay so cool on the court? Because they have lots of fans. All right, so that being said, today is the last day our very own Senate page, Madeline Elston, a senior from Natrona County High in Casper. She's here, and Madeline will say a few words. She doesn't know this, we're not going to let her leave, but we're going to let her say some words. Madeline?
My dear members of the Senate, I would first like to thank all of you for your hard work and dedication to the people in our great state. I would like to thank the Chief Clerk, Ellen Thompson, and Clarissa Nord for this exceptional and truly once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for myself and other students my age. I would also like to thank Sue, Lori, and Marty for excellent on-the-ground training. I would also like to thank the D. Hoff family for hosting me during this 2-week period. Each day brought renewed excitement as I donned my name tag and state seal before leaving the house, ready to soak up everything the day had to offer. On my first evening in Cheyenne, I went on a drive with my host mom in order to learn the route I would take on my first day of work. As I drove on Randall Avenue towards the Capitol, I felt a sense of pride that I would be a small part of the important work happening in this beautiful building for the next 2 weeks. During my short time here, I have learned valuable lessons and the importance of the work conducted within these walls. My favorite part of this experience was when a member of the Senate would call out point of order, signaling that something was amiss. I value the attentiveness you have during this session and your need to go about this important process the correct way. Furthermore, I enjoyed how, during this serious process, your work is met with a lighthearted attitude and the ability to laugh on the floor while also getting things done. Tomorrow, I will be back in Casper partaking in a cross-country ski race, the second to last one before state, and in the fall, I'm going to the University of Wyoming to minor in music and to figure out what my major will be. Each and every one of you is an incredible individual that continues to inspire the next generation. Now, before I give up permission of the floor, I summon the Senate choir to stand, and I ask you all to sing along to Ragtime Cowboy Joe.
Yay!
All right, ready? O-Y-S. Cowboys, cowboys, cowboys. Yeah. Okay.
Nicely done, Madeline. That was a good surprise. Who knew we had a flutist? What are they called? Flautist? Shows you how cultured I am. Have this for you, Madeline, and this. Thank you. Well, I think the cat's out of the bag. What the next, who our special guest is today. Senators joining us this morning is Sundance Wicks, the 23rd head coach of the University of Wyoming men's Cowboy basketball program. A native of Gillette, Wicks previously served as an assistant coach at Wyoming from 2020 to 2023, and last year as head coach led Wisconsin Green Bay to one of the most remarkable single-season turnarounds in college basketball history. He is deeply honored to represent Wyoming and the Cowboys, bringing with him boundless energy and a profound understanding of our state's pride. Please join me in welcoming Coach Wicks to the Senate. Coach Wicks.
Oh, man, what an honor, what an honor. Thank you, President of the Senate Beitman, distinguished members of the Senate. First Lady, you are undefeated at Wyoming right now, so please come back anytime, you're welcome. And then Madeline, sandbagger. All right, you're a classic one-upper. I like you, all right, I like you. You're a high-level competitor. I didn't bring a flute and I didn't bring any instruments, okay? So that's an exciting way to start the day. Well done. And I had no idea that my time in Boise State would actually lead me to this moment right now. So full circle moment for me here, okay? Thank you for that wonderful introduction. It is an honor to serve this state as a native son of Gillette, Wyoming, and living my dream as a Wyoming cowboy. And this dream has been in place since I was born. My parents put me in a brown and gold jumpsuit at 6 months old, and I've wanted to be a cowboy ever since. But what I'm here today to talk to you about is the importance of your home team, the importance of traditions, and the importance of dreams. Man lives and dies by two things, I believe, traditions and dreams. Nothing roots us more in a place than tradition. It tells us who we are, where we came from, who we root for, and what we stand for. It connects generations, those who came before us and those who will come after us. However, tradition alone isn't enough, because tradition without dreams is just history. If tradition is what gives us direction, then it is our dreams that provides us with the fuel and drives us on our journey. The blessing of being raised in Wyoming is that Wyoming gives you gifts. And you don't even know this when you're being raised here, but it gives you gifts. It gives you the gift of grit, tenacity, and toughness, and it provides us all with a rare resilience that we in the state of Wyoming like to call cowboy tough. Yes, yes. And nobody else understands that unless you're from this great state. We know it is cowboy tough, but being cowboy tough is something special because it connects all of us in this state. It's modeled across every home in the state and every workplace. It's modeled by your home team, the Cowboys and Cowgirls, on the gridiron, on the wrestling mat, in the rodeo arena, on the basketball court. See, Wyoming athletics allows our state tradition of being cowboy tough to transcend our borders and to show the rest of America what it means to be a true cowboy or cowgirl. Wyoming athletics scales our poke pride in unmeasurable ways, which is where we can find this deep-seated pride in honoring the brown and gold and riding for the brand. I have spent the last 20 years of my young adult life, and I say young adult life humbly, living in 8 different states, pursuing my passion of coaching, teaching, leading, and mentoring, experienced the curveballs that life throws at you, while never losing sight of my dream to one day come back to this state to honor the brown and gold and to be a Wyoming cowboy. Yes. But I need everybody to understand that it is through Wyoming, it's through the tradition of Wyoming athletics that I stayed engaged with the state through all my years. Just like so many Wyoming residents do, and all the University of Wyoming alumnus still do to this day, it was through Wyoming athletics that my dream gained enough steam to one day come back home and represent this state, this home team with my hometown pride. And now it is through Wyoming athletics, it is with Wyoming athletics that I'm allowed and I'm afforded the opportunity to help young kids in this state try to dream as big as I once dreamed. To try to dream as big as I once dreamed to be a cowboy. If we want our sons and daughters, big hit right there. If we want our sons and daughters, our Mason Droobs of Gillette, our Logan Wilsons of Casper, our Allison Ferdigs of Glendo, and our Marcus Baileys of Cheyenne to stay connected to the state of Wyoming, to stay here in the state of Wyoming, to build their futures here, raise their families here, then we need to keep giving them a tradition worth fighting for and foster the dreams that challenge them to become the best versions of themselves, the toughest versions of themselves. What we can achieve through athletics is so much greater than a championship. It's the creation of a self-sufficient, productive citizen of society. It's the creation of a championship human. It is the creation of a cowboy tough culture that lives on in us in this state. I want to thank all of you for your constant caring commitment to your home team, your commitment to the Cowboys and Cowgirls of this state, and your commitment to the traditions and dreams that are the fuel for the next generation to think bigger, work harder, and push further. Go Pokes. Go Pokes. This challenge point. Unbelievable. I love this.
Hey, look at this guy. I think, my Lions have a coach named Dan Campbell. He makes you want to run through a brick wall and even bite a kneecap off. I think I'm ready to bite a kneecap off.
Goatee right now.
This is awesome. The Pokes are in good hands with this guy. Thank you so much. Future's looking good. Athletic director, I got something for you too. Now, that's the motivation we need this morning. Monday is the last day for Committee of the Whole in the House of Origin. We are moving right along. All right, messages from the House.
From the House of Representatives, Mr. President, the following messages are dated February 6, 2025. Message number 201, House Joint Resolution number 3, support for rural schools, passed the House on third reading. Ayes 57, noes 4, excused 1. Following messages report also bills that passed the House. Message number 200, House Joint Resolution 1, amending Wyoming's Act of Admission for Earnings. Ayes 61, excused 1. Message number 204, House Bill number 148, University of Wyoming Governance Elected Trustees. Ayes 34, noes 17, excused 11. Message number 203, Mr. President, the following bills passed the House on third reading in an amended form. House Bill number 123, Adverse Possession Property Tax Payment Defense. Ayes 40, noes 21, excused 1. Message number 202, House Bill number 4, Snowmobile Registration and User Fees. Ayes 54, noes 7, excused 1. Message number 199, House Bill number 235, Career Technical Education Equipment and Supplies. Ayes 61, excused 1. Message number 198, House Bill number 181, Funeral Contracts, Investment and Bonding Requirements. Ayes 61, excused 1. Message number 197, House Bill number 85, Local Approval for Simulcasting. Ayes 61, excused 1. Message number 196, House Bill number 83, Child Custody Sex Offense Conviction Presumption. Ayes 61, excused 1. Message number 206, House Bill number 275, Treatment of Animals. Ayes 57, noes 3, excused 2. Message number 207, House Bill number 282, Property Tax Acquisition Value. Ayes 35, noes 25, excused 2. Message number 208, House Bill number 200, Parent Rights Amendments. Ayes 34, noes 26, excused 2. Message number 205, Mr. President, House Bill number 205, Wyoming State Fair Department, failed to pass the House on third reading. Ayes 13, noes 46, excused 3. Sincerely, Katie Talbot, House Chief Clerk.
Thank you, Randy. Are there reports from standing committees?
Yes, there are, Mr. President. February 6, 2025. Your committee number 1, Judiciary, to whom was referred Senate File 35, Governmental Claims Maximum Liability Amounts, respectfully reports same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass amended. Ayes Senators Crago, Crum, and Kolb. No, Senators Hicks and Olson. Senator Crago, acting chairman. February 7, 2025, Mr. President, Committee number 2, Appropriations, to whom was referred Senate File 124, Illegal Immigration, Identify, Report, Detain, and Deport. Respectfully report same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass. Ayes Senators Larson, Salazar, and Smith. No, Senator Driscoll and Guru. Senator Salazar, chairman.
Thank you, sir. Bills on second reading.
Mr. President, absent objection, I request we lay back second reading after third reading of the budget bill.
Absent objection is so ordered. Bills on third reading. Madam Majority Leader, do you have a consent list?
Mr. President, I move third reading consent list, which is as follows. Senate File 100, Child Witness Courtroom Procedures. Senate File 160, Treatment Courts Amendments 2, and Senate File 171, City and Town Regulatory Reduction.
Okay. Would anybody like any bills removed from the consent list? It's pretty short already. All right. Having been read 3 separate times, the question is, shall these bills pass the Senate? Senate File 100, Child Witnesses Courtroom Procedures. Senate File 160, Treatment Courts Amendments 2, and Senate File 171, City and Town Regulatory Reduction. The chief clerk, or the question is, shall these bills pass the Senate? The chief clerk will call the roll.
On the consent list, Anderson? Barlow? Aye. Boner? Aye. Brennan? Aye. Case? Aye. Cooper? Aye. Crago? Aye. Crum? Aye. Dockstader? Aye. Driscoll? I. French. I. Guru. I. Hicks. I. Hutchings. I. Ide. I. Jones. I. Kolb. I. Landon. I. Larson. I. McEwen. I. Nethercott. I. Olson. I. Pappas. I. Pearson. Pearson, I. Rothfuss. I. Salazar. I. Schuler. I. Scott. I. Smith. I. Steinmetz. I. Anderson. I. President Beitman.
Aye.
Aye. On the consent list, 31 aye. Senate File 100, are there any changes? Aye. Aye to no. Case? Aye to no. Guru? Aye to no. Kolb? I don't know. Closing vote? Closing. Vote closed. Senate File 100, 27 aye, 4 no. Senate File 160, are there any changes? Aye. Aye to no. Steinmetz? Aye to no. Pearson? Aye to no. Closing vote. Hutchings? Aye to no. Closing. Vote closed. Senate File 160, 27 aye, 4 no. Senate File 171, are there any changes? Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. Senate File 171, 31 aye.
Having received the affirmative vote of the majority of the members elected to the Senate, Senate File 100, Child Witnesses Courtroom Procedures, Senate File 160, Treatment Courts Amendments 2, and Senate File 171, City and Town Regulatory Reduction have passed the Senate. Bills on third reading. Senate File 35, third reading of the Senate File.
Senate File 35, Governmental Claims Maximum Liability Amounts, sponsored by the Judiciary Committee, an act relating to governmental claims.
No, that's the wrong bill. That's not right. Piles got mixed up. Senate File, it should be 127. There it is. Okay, you take that. Yeah, they're messing with me this morning, I tell you what. Okay, Senate File 127, third reading of the Senate File.
Senate File 127, Administrative Rules, Legislative Review and Objections, sponsored by Senator Boner, an act relating to administrative procedure.
There is an amendment. Would the reading clerk please read in the amendment?
Senate File 127, third reading amendment number 1, delete.
Senator Boner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move third reading amendment number 1 to Senate File 127 and ask for the body's favorable consideration. Mr. President, this bill has caused quite a bit of consternation in various parts of this building. I guess somewhat understandably, but in working with everybody that's affected by this piece of legislation, I bring to you this third reading amendment. I apologize for the length of the amendment, but there's just three major points that it does, so it's not quite as complex as it seems given the length of the amendment. So the first thing that it does is it removes the distinction between major rules and all other rules. So we're removing that distinction. Remember that originally, or as the bill currently stands, I should say, it only applies if there's a major rule. This is basically taking us, basing off the current rulemaking review process we have in the legislature. So removing the distinction of major rules and all other rules, we're treating all rules the same. The biggest change is allows, for the current process we actually have, to issue a legislative order which disapproves any rules promulgated by the executive branch. So we're leaning on that process, and the material difference is that it takes the legislature positively acting to disapprove a rule, as is currently outlined in Joint Rule 12-1. And so it's actually a pretty unique rule. If you have a chance to look at it, you don't go through committee, but it goes through 3 readings, and then a majority in both chamber votes in the positive, then we disapprove the rule. The rule goes away. So we're leveraging that process and tweaking it slightly, and that, remember, one of the major provisions of the bill is providing transparency to the public as to the economic impact of these rules, and so we're simply involving the entire legislature in that process. Since we're already involving the public, this will be on the, it'll be published by the Legislative Service Office, the impact these rules have. We're just allowing the entire legislature to get that information as well. Currently, you're only getting that information if you're on management council, if you are involved with sponsoring a bill which led to the rules to begin with, either as a standing committee or an individual legislator. So those are the changes in the third reading amendment. Mr. President, once again, I apologize for its length, but this has been quite the experience, and this will make this a little bit controversial on other floors of this building. So ask for your favorable consideration. I think this gets us to a good Wyoming solution for the amount, beginning to assess the amount of regulation we deal with throughout the state. And so I'm looking forward to any questions you may have, and certainly hope you can support the amendment.
Thank you, Senator Boner. Discussion on the amendment. Question. Seeing none, question being called. All those in favor of Senator Boner's motion to adopt third reading amendment number 1 to Senate File 27, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. The amendment has been adopted. We're back on the bill. Discussion on the bill? Seeing none, Chief Clerk will please call the roll.
Third reading roll call, Senate File 127. Anderson? No. No. Barlow? No. Boner?
Aye.
Aye. Brennan? Aye. Aye. Case? Aye. Aye. Cooper? No. No. Craigo? Aye. Aye. Crum? Aye. Dockstetter? No. Driscoll? Aye. Aye. French? Aye. Aye. Guru? Aye. Hicks? Aye. Aye. Hutchings? Aye. 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 Jones? Aye. Aye. Cole? Aye. Aye. Landon? Aye. Larson? Aye. McEwen? Aye. Nethercott? Aye. Olson? Aye. Aye. Pappas? Aye. Pearson? Aye. Rothfuss? No. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? Aye. Scott? No. Smith? Aye. Steinmetz? Aye. President Beitman?
Aye.
Aye. Case, I don't know. Cooper, no to aye. Closing vote. Closing vote closed. Senate File 127, 25 aye, 6 no.
Senate File 127, having received the affirmative vote of the majority of the members elected to the Senate, Senate File 127 is passed the Senate. Senate File 132, third reading of the Senate File.
Senate File 132, Protecting Critical Infrastructure and Systems from Drones, sponsored by Senator Jones, an act relating to defense forces and affairs.
There is an amendment. Would the reading clerk please read in the amendment?
Senate File 132, third reading amendment number 1, page 2, line 7, after.
Thank you. Senator Hicks.
Mr. President, I move third reading amendment number 1 to Senate File 132 and ask for your favorable consideration. Members of the body, this is a discussion we had in committee on this bill. I wasn't able to get a second reading amendment. I've been working with the sponsor on this. All this does is bring in the concept. And if you've been tracking the war in Europe and what's going on, even these little small drones are now become one of the most lethal weapons on the battlefield. I mean, we're talking something you can buy for $500 to go up and blow $90 million worth of infrastructure up in just a little thing. And so all this does is bring in that these these model aircraft can't be operated if they have an explosive device or are an explosive device. They call these Reaper drones. They're just designed to fly into something and blow up. And this just brings this in, not only if you're just taking pictures and stuff, but if you're flying one of these anywhere near critical infrastructure, that would be a violation under the law. I'd stand for any questions. If there's no questions, ask for your favorable consideration.
Thank you, Senator Hicks. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, call for the question then. All in favor of Senator Hicks's motion to adopt third reading amendment number 1 to the Senate File 132, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The amendment has been adopted. We're back on the bill. Discussion on the bill. Question being called. Having been read 3 separate times, the question is, shall Senate File 132 pass? The chief clerk will call the roll.
Third reading roll call, Senate File 132, Anderson. Aye. Barlow. Aye. Boner. Aye. Brennan. Aye. Case. No. Cooper. Aye. Crago. Aye. Crum. Aye. Dockstetter. Aye. Driscoll. Aye. French. Aye. Guru. Aye. Hicks. Aye. Hutchings. Aye. Ide. No. Jones. Aye. Kolb. Aye. Landon. Aye. Larson. Aye. McEwen. Aye. Nethercott. Aye. Olson. Aye. Pappas. Aye. Pearson. Aye. Rothfuss. Aye. Salazar. Aye. Schuler. Aye. Scott. Aye. Smith. Aye. Steinmetz. Aye. President Biteman.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
I don't know.
No to aye? Aye, no to aye. Closing vote. Closing vote closed. Senate File 132, 30 aye, 1 no.
All right, Senate File 132, having received the affirmative vote of the majority of the members elected to the Senate, Senate File 132 has passed the Senate. All right, Madam Majority Floor Leader.
Privilege of the floor, Mr. President.
Of course.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good senators, we have with us directly in front in the gallery joining us today the brilliant and highly intelligent Students of the Year as identified by the Wyoming Association of Community College Trustees and the Wyoming Business Alliance. Those students are joining us here. If you could please stand when I call your name, we sure would appreciate it so we can welcome you to the Senate. Starting with Katie Baumstark at Casper College. She's a student from Senator Cooper's district, Worland, Wyoming. She is studying kinesiology and a second-year nursing student. So she has her degree in kinesiology and is now in nursing. Now that I have that, welcome, Katie. We have Taylor Coleman from Sheridan College. Taylor is studying elementary education at Sheridan College. She's active in the college community, and she's the Student Government Association president. Excellent work, Taylor. Good to have you here. Next, we have Thea Farrington from Northwest College. Arthea is in professional studies, and she earned her AA in psychology last spring. I think Ms. Farrington is from Minnesota and has relocated to Wyoming and attending one of our 8 community colleges here in the state. Welcome, Ms. Farrington. Next, we have Tyler McMillan from Western Wyoming Community College. She is joining us in the nursing program. We need more of those nurses here in the West. Tyler is originally from Utah, so just how our community colleges attract talent throughout the region. Welcome. We're so glad you're studying nursing, Tyler. Next, we have Cooper Phillips from Eastern Wyoming College. And as you might guess, Cooper is studying agriculture and is in Phi Theta Kappa, is the treasurer of that organization, and of course is on the EWC rodeo team. Way to do us proud and keep our Western culture alive, Cooper. Then we have Lindsay Stewart from Central Wyoming College. Lindsay is studying regenerative farming, no doubt a unique program there in Riverton. Welcome. Next, we have Miranda Unwin at Laramie County Community College. A native from Colorado, and she is in the arts program. Welcome, Miranda. Good to have you. Congratulations on Student of the Year. And finally, good senators, we have Michaela Jelenich of Gillette College, also studying education. Good senators, all of these brilliant students attending our community colleges across the state come with long resumes of accolades, which I have not read to you, but wanted to just highlight some of their key accomplishments. We welcome you to the Senate. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, Madam Floor Leader, for that. Welcome to the Senate. Yes, sir. Senator Landon.
Mr. President, thank you. May I have privilege of the floor for a moment?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I have a good friend here today. I actually, this month, 19 years ago, I hired this individual. She's become very close to me and my family, and I'm so happy to have her here today. I hope you'll welcome Chelsea DiPaolo to the Senate today. She is an associate vice president now at the college where I used to be, taking over some of the things and doing a lot better than I ever did. Chelsea DiPaolo, welcome to the Senate.
Welcome to the Senate.
Stand up.
Anybody else? Senator Hicks, did you have anything, or are you just organizing your paperwork? Okay, he's still looking for those cows. All right. Third reading of the budget bill. Senate File 1. Let's see here. Do you need these, Randy, or just the bill? All right. Senate File 1, third reading of the Senate file.
Senate File 1, General Government Appropriations, sponsored by the Appropriations Committee. An act relating to supplemental appropriations for the operation of state government for the fiscal biennium commencing July 1, 2024, and ending June 30, 2026.
Thank you. There are a few amendments. Third reading amendment number 1.
Senate File 1, third reading amendment number 1, Section 1, Office of the Governor, delete.
All right, start us off, Senator Guru.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move third reading amendment number 1 to Senate File 1 and ask for your favorable consideration. Good members, I rise just to make a small change in this amendment. There's no hesitation on the need for this helicopter, and there's no hesitation on the recurring nature of the appropriation. It is needed. My only change is to change it to the general fund from the tourism account. I understand we heard testimony that, sometimes, or that these are majority of people that are traveling and has that tourism connection to it. I've not seen any data that shows that in any empirical way. But more importantly is the reoccurring nature of a $400,000 appropriation from what is still a relatively new account that we're just still working on. And so that's why I ask you, and I ask for your favorable consideration, to please change this to the general fund and away from the tourism account. And vote aye. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Discussion? Senator Boner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate the words from my colleague from Teton County. This is clearly a need we have in our state. And so glad that we're keeping the funding for the Search and Rescue Council. I'll be supporting this amendment, Mr. President. Our Office of Tourism does some really good work. And so appreciate what they do. And, if we have a room for $400,000, extra $400,000, I think this is money well spent on a basic function of government. So I'll be voting aye.
Any further discussion on the amendment? I think we're ready for the question. Chief Clerk? Chief Clerk will call the roll.
Third reading amendment number 1. Roll call. Anderson? Aye. Aye. Barlow? Aye. Boner? Aye. Brennan? Aye. Case? No. Cooper? Aye. Craigo? Aye. Crum? Aye. Dockstetter? Aye. Driscoll? Aye. French? Aye. Guru? Aye. Hicks? Aye. Hutchings? Aye. Ide? Aye. Jones? Aye. Cole? Aye. Landon? Aye. Larson? Aye. McEwen? Aye. Nethercott? Aye. Olson? Aye. Pappas? Aye. Pearson? Aye. Rothfuss? Aye. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? Aye. Scott? Aye. Smith? Aye. Steinmetz? Aye. President Biteman?
No.
No. Scott? Scott? I don't know. Larson? Larson, no. Salazar? No. Closing vote. Closing vote closed. On the amendment, 26 aye, 5 no.
Third reading amendment number 1 has been adopted. Third reading amendment number 2.
Senate File 1, third reading amendment number 2, Section 6, Administration and Information, page 1, line 8, after.
Senator Hicks.
Mr. President, I move third reading amendment number 2 to Senate File number 1 and just ask for your consideration. This is a non-budgetary. This just adds a footnote requiring a report. The report specifically deals with just identifying the total number of full-time and part-time employees of the state of Wyoming that are working from home or alternate locations, and then also the number of employees that are, as a breakdown, that are working out of state at alternate locations. I think it's information that I think the legislature would find interesting, as to see how many people are working for home and for what agency and how many hours, and then where that location is. It's just information to be collected by the department, so I would ask for your favorable consideration and stand for any questions.
Any questions, discussion on the amendment? Senator Barlow.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I'm interested in the time frame. It seems like 6 months time frame. Seems like relatively short. Is there something that occurred in there that we should be aware of? Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Any other questions, discussion? Senator Rothfuss.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, and I would just ask it, this seems like the kind of thing that if I sent an email, I would get. I don't know why we need a footnote. Is it that challenging to calculate so that there needs to be a budget expenditure associated with determining this? I feel like if the Appropriations Committee, for example, wanted to know this, they would just know it within a few weeks after, well, probably a few months, but anyway, at a later meeting. So this seems similar to what you would have for a standard committee request. I'm wondering why we need it in the budget.
Senator, anybody else? For the sponsor? Back to the sponsor.
Yeah, Mr. President, so the time frame is just get a one-shot in time. Right now, we have no reference as to how many people are teleworking and where they're teleworking from. So it's just to give us a one-point-in-time reference as to how many of those employees of the state and those agencies are teleworking, be able to compare those across departments, and look at where those locations are at. It's information. The reason it's in a budget footnote is because it's something that the Appropriations Committee didn't contemplate. It's not in the supplemental, so it's just an additional report. It's one report to look forward to see how and where our employees that this legislature authorized the payment for, where they're working, and how many of them are working at home and how many hours. So on and for the amendment.
Thank you. This requires a voice vote unless somebody wants a roll call. We'll do a voice vote first. All those in favor of Senator Hicks's motion to adopt third reading amendment number 2 to Senate File 1, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. The motion carries. Division being called. All those in favor, please stand. $17 yes. All those opposed, no. Less than 17. Motion has been adopted. Third reading amendment number 2 to Senate File 1 has been adopted. Third reading amendment number 3.
Senate File 1, third reading amendment number 3, Section 10, Department of Agriculture, page 17, line 5, after.
Senator Larson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move third reading amendment number 3 to Senate File number 1 and ask for your favorable consideration. This amendment decreases each named division's budget that is for cost allocation to the level that existed in 2023 biennial budget. These divisions already pay for conference calls, central mail, postage and freight, legal advertising, supplies, copier cost. In all but one case, the increase in cost allocation is thousands of % higher than the previous biennium. In the case of one exception, the Dry Bean Commission, this increase was 517%, is contrary to their enabling statutes, which limits their reimbursements for costs to 1% of receipts. Their total biennium appropriation for this division is $300,000. Please support this amendment to allow the divisions to continue using these producer funds to further their mission of developing markets, conducting research, and promoting domestic food production.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Senator. Discussion? Senator Driscoll.
Mr. President, just a few questions. These are all special revenues. Do these agencies or these pieces, did they ask for these cuts, or are we taking guys that pay into a fund and actually telling them that they can't spend their own money how they want? I'm a little unclear as what they are. As I look at, we've got Weed and Pest Council, Beef Council, Wheat Marketing, Dry Bean, Leaf Cutter. They're all other fund special revenue. Beef Council, I think, is their own money. Are we actually telling them that they can't spend their own money the way they want?
Any other questions before we go back to the sponsor? Senator Anderson.
Mr. Chairman, on line 19, is that really $468? Is that $468 we're decreasing the amount by?
Any further questions? Anybody else? All right, back to the sponsor.
Mr. President, thank you. Thank you for the questions. Yes, these are dues that are coming from these special commissions, like the wheat market. That is dues that they pay. Same with the Dry Bean Commission. I'm just going to throw out the number. 2023, the cost allocation was $3,000. They've upped it to $15,511. So I think these funds should be used by these commissions for what they were, what the statutes say. And you are correct, the leaf cutter bee is only, what, 460 whatever dollars, but we were treating them all the same. I'd vote aye.
All right. Chief Clerk will call the roll.
Third reading amendment number 3, roll call, Anderson. Aye. Barlow? Aye. Boner? Aye. Brennan? No. Case? Aye. Cooper? Aye. Crago? Aye. Crum? Aye. Dockstetter? Aye. Driscoll? No. French? Aye. Guru? No. Hicks? No. Hutchings? Aye. Ide? Aye. Jones? Aye. Cole? No. Landon? Aye. Larson? Aye. McEwen? Aye. Nethercott? Aye. Olson? Aye. Pappas? Aye. Pearson? Aye. Rothfuss? No. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? Aye. Scott? Aye. Smith? Aye. Steinmetz? Aye. President Beitman?
Aye.
Aye. Case, aye to no. Boner, aye to no. Guru, no to aye. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. Third reading amendment number 3, 24 aye, 7 no.
Third reading amendment number 3 has been adopted. Third reading amendment number 4.
Senate File 1, third reading amendment number 4, Section 24, State Parks and Cultural Resources, page 22, line 5 after.
Senator Steinmetz.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move third reading amendment number 4 to Senate File 1 and ask for your favorable consideration. Fellow senators, I'd like to take you on a little trip down memory lane. When I was young, we always participated in the county fair with its historic buildings and culture of our Western heritage that we participate in. And then I'd saddle up my fuzzy little Palomino Shetland pony and we'd go ride in the county parade. And as we came down the Main Street, at the very end of Main Street, there was our historic train depot. It was beautiful, it was historic, and it was nice. And at the time, I didn't realize how much character and identity it brought to our community. But looking back, since they tore it down and put a fast food restaurant there, I realize now as an adult how much I miss that building and wish we would have endeavored to save it, as well as all of our historic buildings on our fairgrounds. We had an old grandstand that we've now torn down and put in an indoor barn, and I wish we would have simply added an indoor barn and kept that culture alive. And so, Mr. President, that's what this amendment seeks to do, is just really have some kind of an impact analysis before we abandon those historic features in our communities that provide the flavor and the culture that we're all accustomed to and we've all grown up with. And as people move into our great state and we want to welcome all legal residents with open arms, we want to be careful that we're balancing progress with our historic preservation. And so with that, Mr. President, that is what this amendment is intended to do, and I'd ask for your aye vote.
Thank you. Discussion on the amendment. Senator Grew.
Thank you, Mr. President. On and against. First, thank you, and thanks to the good senator for the trip. And I know, I, like her, except for the fuzzy horse part, have great memories of our county fair, and still do, because our county fair is right where it is, right where it's been, and right where it's going to be. And so now that we got that cleared up, we want to say this is not an item for our budget. It's not an item for us to take up today. It's a great item for a bill sometime, and we could talk for hours about, you know, the bygone days and what we need to do to restore and keep our history and keep it. But not here, not now, not today, not in this bill, on and against. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any discussion? Senator Driscoll?
Mr. President, thank you. It may appear that this is a specific issue, but I point you to line 20, which stands on its own. Any current leases that expire on public property or sites that were established on or before January 1, 1950 shall comply with this footnote before the lease is disposed of, sold, or transferred. That is every state property statewide, folks. It could apply to virtually anything. This is really a piece of legislation within the budget, and it really is a directive. It goes into local control, and it goes into where we're at. We talk about putting bills in the budget. This is one. This should have been a bill and been numbered. Thank you.
Any other discussion on the bill, the amendment? Senator Dockstader.
Mr. President, just a quick question before we go back to sponsor then. Is there any idea how many pieces of property this would affect?
Thank you. Any other questions before the sponsor? Back to you, Senator Steinmetz.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't know how many properties that might currently be disposed of, sold, or transferred. That's why it's open-ended, so that we can evaluate those on a case-by-case basis. But I would just say, just like we took an action to save our sacred tree the other day, I would hope we would do the same with our Western culture. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Let's see here. Is this a voice vote or a roll call, Madam Clerk?
Call for the ayes and nays.
All right, ayes and nays have been called. That solves that. Chief Clerk will call the roll.
Third reading amendment number 4. Roll call. Anderson? No. No. Barlow? No. Boner? No. Brennan? No. No. Case? No. No. Cooper? No. No. Crago? No. Crum? No. Dockstader? Aye. Driscoll? No. French? Aye. Guru? No. Hicks? No. Hutchings? Aye. Aye. No. Jones? No. Kolb? Aye. Landon? No. Larson? Aye. McEwen? No. Nethercott? No. Olson? No. Pappas? No. Pearson? Aye. Rothfuss? No. Salazar? No. Schuler? No. Scott? No. Smith? Aye. Steinmetz? Aye. President Beitman?
No.
No. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. Amendment number 4, 8 aye, 23 no.
Third reading amendment number 4 to Senate File 1 has failed. Third reading amendment number 5.
Senate File 1, third reading amendment number 5, Section 24, State Parks and Cultural Resources, page 22, after line 13, under.
Senator Pappas.
Thank you, Mr. President. This amendment is really dealing with the High Plains Research Center and Arboretum here in Cheyenne.
Could you move the amendment, please?
Oh, please, thank you. I move amendment number 5 to Senate File 1 and ask for your favorable consideration. Thank you. Appreciate that. So anyhow, as I mentioned, this is the amendment dealing with the High Plains Research Center and Arboretum. We had a bill that unfortunately failed by one vote in committee to make this research center a state park. This is a very important historical site for Wyoming. Back in 1928, when the research station was established, it sought to scout the world for trees and other vegetation that would grow in Wyoming. And so since then, the research has been going on. This station has impacted all of Wyoming, and it's got a lot of historical significance to Wyoming. And so unfortunately, this year it won't be able to be designated as a state park. But in that bill, we also had some funding that was actually stripped out earlier by the Appropriations Committee. It was about $3.3 million. We're asking through this amendment to add another $2.5 million. We're not taking it now out of the general fund as it was. In consultation with the tourism folks, they were agreeable to take it out of the tourism reserve. And so the intent is to maintain this park, this research station, until such times as we are able to find consensus to make it a state park. Certainly, I want to tell you that the city of Cheyenne has been a big supporter of this project. Last year in 2024, they ponied up $523,000 to keep this research station going. A one-time expense of just $309,000 to pave the road to the National Cemetery, which we have Wyoming's only national cemetery in this arboretum. So plus they have been providing water for irrigation. They've provided full-time staff, 2 part-time seasonal employees, 1 full-time seasonal intern. Their forestry staff has participated, and then a huge number of volunteer hours. So Cheyenne, their projected contributions for 2025 are $395,500. So Cheyenne is trying to maintain this. It's an expensive thing to maintain, and they will continue to pony up this kind of money into the future as well. They want to be a partner, but we also want to see it to be a state park. As I said, unfortunately, that won't happen this year, but we're looking for $2.5 million, again, not out of the general fund, just to maintain it until we do get to the state park. So with that, and there's actually 5 buildings and a greenhouse and a lath house out there. They're historical structures as well. I mean, they were designed by William Du Bois, who you know is the #1 licensed architect in the state. You know, his license was A1, and he designed much of this building. So it's important for us to preserve our heritage, our architecture, and certainly the ongoing function of that facility. They're looking at 40 to 50,000 seedlings that they can ship statewide. Right now, we are buying seedlings from out of state to plant, reforest. The state now could buy them from the Arboretum, keep that money in state instead of shipping it out of state. So on and for this amendment.
Discussion on the amendment? Senator Hicks.
Just a couple of questions. Number one, who currently owns the facility? Is it still USDA, or is it owned by the city, or who owns it? And then what's the long-term? At one point in time, a couple of years ago, there was a report out there about just the cost to basically bring all the buildings up to meet all the current building codes and standards, and if you have a number on that, but I think it was pretty significant. But if you've got information, that would be helpful. Because what I'm trying to figure out is what's the long-term liability with the facility?
Any other questions before the sponsor goes for his second time? Senator Nethercott.
Thank you, Mr. President. If you support federal lands Coming back to the state, then you support the Arboretum. Vote aye.
Okay. Senator Boner.
Yeah, I appreciate the question from my colleague from Bags. It seems like I remember there's some sort of connection with the botanical gardens here in our capital city. And so my question revolves around that. Having been a resident of this city for almost a little over 5 years, I personally helped with the 6 Cent effort a few years back to renovate that beautiful building. If you haven't had a chance, if you have time, Senators, I'd encourage you to go look at that relatively new facility at the Botanical Gardens. And so my question is, has that been an option been looked at for this facility? It seems like that would be the first effort. If there's a lack of funding or concern about funding, what options have been explored locally to ensure that this piece of history can be preserved?
Thank you, Senator Boner. Further discussion? All right, back to you, Senator Pappas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to the question of the long-term cost, to my understanding, it's about $20 million over long-term costs. Certainly, we're not looking to ask for that in the future. There are grants available. As I mentioned, this is going to be a partnership. There'll be other monies coming rather than state monies. So we're really not looking for the $20 million from the state. I mean, maybe in the future they'll be looking for some monies since it's intended to be a state park, hopefully. But the number is about $20 million. Mentioning the Botanic Gardens, they're anticipating last year, the Friends of the Botanic Garden provided $65,000 toward it. So, thank you.
Thank you. Chief Clerk will call the roll. The bill sponsor went twice.
Third reading amendment number 5, roll call. Anderson? Aye. Aye. Barlow? Aye. Boner? No. Brennan? Aye. Case? Aye. Cooper? Aye. Crago? Aye. Crum? Aye. Dockstetter? No. Driscoll? Aye. French? No. Guru? No. Hicks? No. Hutchings? Aye. Ide? No. Jones? No. Cole? No. Landon? Aye. Larson? No. McEwen? No. Nethercott? Aye. Olson? Aye. Pappas? Aye. Pearson? No. Rothfuss? Aye. Salazar? No. Schuler? Aye. Scott? Aye. Smith? No. Steinmetz? No. President Beitman?
No.
No. Driscoll, aye to no. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. On the amendment, 15 aye, 16 no.
Third reading amendment number 5 has failed. Third reading amendment number 6.
Senate File 1, third reading amendment number 6, section 37, state engineer, page 4, line 20, after.
Senator Jones.
I move third reading amendment number 6 to Senate File 1. Folks, today we're going to ride the horse back to the watering hole, and hopefully with a favorable consideration. I want to give some important stats. I think there was some inaccuracies given last time. This should be in the supplemental budget because it is important. The curtailments are on the horizon. 7 states have not reached the consensus on the 2026 operating guidelines, and that means curtailment is the only real tool between the states right now to deal with the shortages. The projections by our state are that the curtailment could possibly hit as early as 2026, to 2027 if 82.5 million acre feet over 10 years deems the trigger. I believe in our area, they have been trying to work on exchanges to avoid buying and drying ranches to secure backup water. That process is long, and the petitions have been out there for 1.5 years, and they don't have an end in sight. I don't think that's our number one thing, is to have our industries buy ranches and dry them up. The bottom line in the need for this position is that the timing of the curtailment is still unknown, but we're potentially close enough for this to be very worrisome for us. We need an extra engineer to help us keep an eye on the horizon and to work through these important details. By the time we know of the actual curtailment, it's going to be way too late. We have to be proactive. The timeline for the supplemental is valid, and so is this position. It is coming out of the general fund now, and we reduced it to one position. I ask for your aye vote.
Discussion. Senator Cole.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Vice President. On and for the amendment, I think we always have to keep our guard up when it comes to water. Water is something we can't afford to lose, and it probably takes a little bit of extra protection to do that. And I think we're wise to put our investment towards this situation to be ready and to not be a victim of what's going to be soon to happen as all the other adjoining states and other folks that are wanting to use our water. We just have to be ready for it and able to defend ourselves. And this is one small step in doing that. So on and for the amendment.
Other discussion. Senator Larson.
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. On and against the amendment, I think it's a slippery slope. We're just adding more FTEs. It's easy to add them. It's hard to take them back. I don't think we're in that drastic of need right now. Obviously, the Colorado River is a big topic, but we still are meeting our 1928 compact of 7.5 million acre feet per year, and that was over a 10-year period. We're not even close to reaching that point. So I don't think it's needed. They have all the records. They're still keeping records on all the diversions, all the creeks that they have. I'm not sure what this position will do.
Thank you. Anybody else? Let's go to Senator Hicks next.
Mr. President, as you recall, in the first reading or second reading when this came up, I had some concerns primarily revolving around the source of the funds, taking it away from water development that supports irrigation districts, cities and towns, water projects. That's been ribbony here. To both of my colleagues, the potential out there is real. We just remind you that we have done a lot. We've added a position to the Attorney General's office, one to the Water Development Office, one to the State Engineer's office in the last 2 years, but there's still a demand out here. And this doesn't affect just us that live in the Colorado River Basin, because the largest municipality in the state that you happen to be standing in gets about 40% of their water supply from the Colorado River Basin with the trans-basin diversions. I concur with my friend from Park County that this is a build-out. This is one position, starts to get us in the right direction. Curtailment's on the tracks. When it's going to get here, we don't know if it'll ever get here. But here's my biggest concern, is we have to prepare for it before it gets here. This starts us in that progressive track to get us there. One of the things that was alluded to by my colleague from Sweetwater County is if this hits, and we are not prepared for it, and when I'm talking about being prepared, is having an opportunity to work for the largest water right holders is the agricultural water rights. The junior water right holders, the most junior in the entire basin is the Trona industry, a multi-billion-dollar industry that pays hundreds of $1 million of taxes. and municipalities. So it's not just Cheyenne's Junior, they're post-compact water rights. You have Rock Springs, Green River, almost every municipality in the basin is post-compact. So that compact 1923. So most of these cities and towns can and will be impacted. The last thing we want to do is end up with a long-term transfer of water from agriculture to municipality. So this, one of the problems we're having, and I don't know that this position is going to solve this, but we have heavy industry that's been trying to do temporary exchanges and exchange agreements with agriculture so they don't have to buy ranches and dry them up. And that process has not been working in the state of Wyoming. And I don't know that this position is going to resolve that. The train's on the track. It's coming. This is a measured approach to put one more position in there to try to deal with this issue that affects almost 40% of the people in the state of Wyoming get their drinking water out of the Colorado River Basin in Wyoming. And so it's real. This is a measured approach. It's one position. It's coming out of the right amount, right funding. I don't think that we needed 3 at this point in time. I would concur with my colleague from Park County and some of his statements as far as curtailment. The 10 years it's a 10-year average. We're not there yet, but it's coming. This is a reasonable approach to start addressing that issue on and for the amendment.
Senator Dockstader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I remind the body, we cut this person back, that we cut this request back to one person. What this does is it helps expedite the permitting process for one of our key industries as well, so that things don't get backlogged. Let me take you to the Trona Patch and the industry value there in 2023. One person, remember. Severance tax, 25.7 million. Ad valorem, 44.5 million. Federal mineral royalty, total paid, 24.9 million. Ad valorem tax on real and other property, 9.4 million. State royalties, 4.4 million. Sales tax, 12.8 million. Private royalties, 80.9 million. Total taxes and royalties, 202.8 million. Payroll, including benefits. Payroll, $450 million. Total industry value in 2023, $652.8 million. On and for the amendment.
Thank you. Senator Schuler.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. I think most of what I was going to say has been said, but just want to add one more thing to it. Right now, if we're not getting these permits out in a timely manner, which, like I said, I visited with at least one of our folks over there in the Trona Patch, that it's taken 1.5 years. That shouldn't happen. So if one person will help that, just that alone, then when it comes down the pike that we are gonna, because we're expanding in the southwest corner, as you all know. It's not just the Trona companies, but a number of companies that are expanding over there. So we've got to have the help, and we've got to be able to get these reviews through. So this one position, I think, will make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak on the amendment? Senator Larson.
Mr. President, thank you. I'm still on against the amendment. I'm not sure if this position will be the one that will be working on the permits. You got to realize who works on the permits, and it's usually the superintendent of that division. You know, the lower people in that division kind of help out, but a lot of it's just in the Board of Control at their quarterly meetings. And quite often the permit delay is not with the state. Quite often it's with the engineer that's been hired by the Trona companies or whatever. Quite often it's training the engineer to fill out the permit, right? And the back and forth that goes on between Cheyenne and the engineer before it even gets to the Board of Control meeting. So on and against the motion.
Thank you. Let's go to Senator Hicks for your second time.
Yeah, Mr. President, my colleague from Park County is exactly right. I don't think this is going to speed up the permitting process for water rights application. I'm not convinced this permit is going to actually help the Trona industry do their temporary exchanges. But here's what I do know this person's going to be doing. We have 2,600 points of diversion within the Green River Basin in Wyoming. Many of these currently are not up to standards as far as measuring devices to comply with the legal requirements of the state of Wyoming. We have data gaps in our water management system. So I would concur with my colleague from Park County, but we still have a tremendous amount of workload to get out there and evaluate all these points of diversions, because these are the ones that could potentially be used for exchanges for the trona industry. That's important information to have to facilitate these, and then not only where those points are, but how much water is diverted, what's the water right, and all of these things. So my understanding, this is supposed to be more of a hydrographer position, somebody out in the field doing this. So again, I would concur on the comments that he made as far as resolving those permit issues, but we need data collection. So we are our own best experts in the state of Wyoming. So on and for the amendment.
Anybody else before the sponsor? Last chance. Back to you, Senator Jones.
Mr. President, I do agree with my neighboring senator. These people in these positions right now are spread too thin, and they need the help. That's why they originally asked for 3 positions. We've brought it down to the 1, but there are details that can't be missed, and we need all hands on deck to keep all of our water rights in Wyoming. If you think about this, what can we do without our water rights? This is a very, very important issue, and it should be important to everyone in here. Please vote aye.
Thank you. Chief Clerk will please call the roll.
Third reading amendment number 6, roll call. Anderson? Aye. Barlow? Aye. Boner? Aye. Brennan? Aye. Case? No. Cooper? Aye. Crago? Aye. Crum? Aye. Dockstader? Aye. Driscoll? No. French? No. Guru? No. Hicks? Aye. Hutchings? No. Ide? No. Jones? Aye. Cole? Aye. Landon? Aye. Larson? No. McEwen? No. Nethercott? No. Olson? Aye. Pappas? No. Pearson? Aye. Rothfuss? Aye. Salazar? No. Schuler? Aye. Scott? Aye. Smith? No. Steinmetz? Aye. President Whiteman?
No.
No. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. Third reading amendment number 6, 18 aye, 13 no.
Third reading amendment number 6 has passed. Third reading amendment number 7.
Senate File 1, third reading amendment number 7, Section 48, Department of Health, page 29, line 6, after.
Senator Rothfuss.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move third reading amendment number 7 to Senate File 1 and ask the body's favorable consideration. Mr. President, this is a general fund appropriation of $18 million to the Department of Health for a specific use, and that is to provide grants to public hospitals formed and licensed under the laws of the state, including county memorial hospitals, rural healthcare districts, and special hospital districts for the support of delivery and maternity care. Now, this is something that we all know that we've been hearing concerns about. We've been having closures of obstetric clinics. We've been having communities lose their support, lose access, and we know that a substantial portion of our population in the state would have to drive more than 60 miles just to have delivery or maternity care. That's really unacceptable. We don't have any solutions on the horizon. I was personally hoping there'd be some good opportunities and options through this legislative session, but we just haven't seen it. This is effectively a stopgap measure. It provides a grant program to try and provide direct support for the programs that already exist in the state. There aren't any specifics as to how, what, where, or why, but there is the opportunity then to bolster existing programs and perhaps come up with some new opportunities and bridge the gap. I think it's essential that we maintain these programs because starting them up again is ever so much more expensive than maintaining the ones that we have right now. This is a good investment. This is a good way for us to use the funds that we do have. We need to invest in our current population in the state and our healthcare in the state. And to me, this is a simple and direct stopgap measure, not a solution, stopgap measure that can give us some runway so that we can hopefully address and solve this problem. I hope the body will support this funding opportunity. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Discussion on the amendment. Senator Scott.
Mr. President, this amendment, we're starting to talk real money here and dealing with a real problem we have. Yeah, the obstetric care, the delivery care here, one of the basic fundamental medical services that a community needs. And that's important for the people who live there. And since we're talking money here, Mr. President, it's important for the economy. You want to destroy a community's ability to attract new businesses and keep existing businesses that might be mobile, take away their delivery care, take away their obstetric care. Really put a community behind the eight ball. Mr. President, I know it's a lot of money, but it does, recall the discussion in Committee of the Whole, where there's at least 3 causes of the problems we're having in obstetrics. This is aimed at the most important one. So, Mr. President, reluctantly because of the amount, but because of the importance of the issue, I urge the Senate to vote aye on this amendment.
Senator Hutchings.
Mr. President, quick question. If I believe last year we gave 90 million, what's gone on with the 90 million? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Senator. More questions? Senator Crum?
I speak in favor of, Mr. President, I speak in favor of this amendment. Our county, our little hospital in Albany County delivers about 70% of the babies out of Carbon County. And that's an okay thing in the summer to drive 100 miles plus, but around Elk Mountain in the wintertime, which I know many of you do and probably will do this evening, it's not such a great experience, and that's tough. We also delivered quite a bit of babies out of Platte County, and then it doesn't really matter to this body, but almost 100% out of Park County, Colorado. So this is a really important thing for our communities. It's a really important thing for the ladies in our communities, in our rural communities. So I speak strongly in favor of this amendment. Thank you.
Senator Salazar, Mr. Vice President.
Mr. President, $18 million.
Duly noted. Anybody else? Senator Brennan.
Thank you, Mr. President. 18 million is a lot. We're talking about our most precious resource here. We're talking about women who have to potentially travel an hour, 100 miles, however long you want to look at it. Let me remind you, some of us in this body have given birth. I can tell you 100 miles on one of those, I may not have made it to the hospital. That's also a lot when you start having problems. If the baby's heart rate goes down, there's a lot of things that go right because it's normal and natural to give birth. But when things go bad, they go bad quick. And we're talking about access for women who are carrying our most valuable resource, our children. And we stand here and we fight about that. Let's not fight on this one. Let's put our money where our mouth is, and let's say, these are our most valuable resources. We're gonna support these women and these children.
Senator Hicks.
Mr. President, in case you didn't know, I've never given birth. Just want to make that clear. And probably never will. Mr. President, on and against the amendment. not because of the intent. This sets up a whole new program, and it biennializes, so it's $36 million next year. When we start out, you're never gonna see it again, but here's more importantly, there's no rulemaking authority in here that provides for grants to who? And for what? This is an interim topic for the Health Committee to take up. And so when I look at this, it says the intent of the legislature, this appropriate, not be included in the department's health. There's always those little words like not, that if you just skip over them really are important. So, but here's my point. It's premature. I don't know if my hospital is even gonna be eligible because I haven't seen what the requirements are. Is this designed to pay for physicians? Is it designed to pay for facilities? What's it gonna be used for? It's unspecified. Who's gonna get it? What's the cost share rate? How much do they get? Is it a 50-50? Is it 100%? What's the demand? Where's the demand statewide? Is it in the southeast corner, the southwest corner, the northwest corner? I don't know. I don't know how this program's gonna work, who's gonna get it, what's it eligible for, and if it even meets the need. We need to take, this is the great interim topic for the Health Committee to take up. The issue is real, believe me, I've got a hospital over there, just as my colleague from Albany County, we have to go all over the place now. It's a real issue out there, but it takes a little more contemplation to stand up a program than just throw one-time money at it, and it may or may not do some good, but does it do good in your community? Does it help the needs? Does it address the bigger overall problem within the state of Wyoming? We need to look at this and understand what we're doing on how we're going to spend $18 million. Mr. Perriman, I appreciate the sentiment. It is absolutely well-deserved, but without a lot more details, I can't support an $18 million appropriation when I don't know what it does.
Thank you. Let's go to Senator Cole.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I also have never given birth, nor do I identify as somebody who gave birth. To that end, this is a serious topic, and this kind of commitment and obligation for the future without having a known policy and how it's going to be executed isn't the way to go. It is a huge amount of money, and maybe deservedly so to the situation. However, where are we? We don't know. Last moment, once again, here we're looking at something that we can all, say, well, it's for the kids, and it's for this, and it's for that. It is for a good thing. But to what end? I can't, in good faith or good conscience, commit this kind of money, this kind of obligation, for what? A good idea, but no solid way of doing it yet. I think it definitely has to be addressed. I mean, as I said before, we're open for business in Sweetwater County, but we're one of the few counties that have this opportunity to do this. And what do? Do one at every tiny little place in the whole state of Wyoming for OB services? I don't know if that's the right way to go. I think maybe it should be regionalized. I think it opens up a lot of great questions that there's no answers to here. We've got a lot of money going after really one of those things that you can't hardly say no to sometimes. But this doesn't make any fiscal sense. And we are spending a lot of money, a lot more money than we originally intended. We've gone above the governor's recommendations. And so here's one more, nail in the fiscal coffin. So on and against the budget amendment for my so stated reason, Mr. President.
Senator Smith.
Mr. President, I'm on and against this expenditure. I ran a bill earlier in the session here that would have made it codified that the supplemental budget is for emergencies. And I hear it over and over. The governor sent out a letter that this session is for emergencies. If this should have been in the biennium budget, that doesn't have a place here. It should be addressed in the main budget session, not here. Thank you.
Senator Dockstader, did you have it?
Thank you, Mr. President. Reluctantly against it. Speaking of years and years of sitting through hospital board meetings and watching them put together healthcare programs for their hospitals. And this is one of the most difficult and complicated. I would submit to the body that we have some bigger problems out there. And I know that's hard to conceive. We have some problems of just keeping some hospitals open in our communities. And I think we'll address that at another time. But that's probably our first priority, is make sure that we keep our hospitals open in as many communities as we can. And then we start to do the specialty programs like this, on and against.
Thank you. Senator Anderson.
Mr. President, I think we have some misinformation on the floor. I think the senator from Little Snake River and the senator from Kilpecker Creek maybe have said that this bill is 36 million. It's not 36 million. I didn't really hear that wiped out. I hope to hear that later. I think this bill is 18 million and not 36 million on and for this amendment.
Okay. Senator Pearson.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I did give birth to 3 children in preterm labor with every one. I'm talking 3 centimeters dilated from the time I was about 3 months pregnant on. I had all 3 of my children in Denver. So I think that what we need to do is we need to address the problem in the state as to why these centers are closing down, why our hospitals are having such trouble staying open. What is going on in these hospitals that is causing medical professionals and nurses not to want to work anymore? Those questions need to be addressed. I appreciate the bringer of this because, yes, our children are our most precious resource. But we have to get to the reason why these things are happening. Why mothers are choosing to go out of state. Why our doctors and nurses don't want to work in these facilities anymore. That's what needs to be addressed. I'm going to be against this amendment right now. I realize that there is a need for this, but we have to get to the bottom of the problem. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Greer, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. President. Reluctantly, against this amendment right now, and I do want to say, I do appreciate the body. In the last round we talked about and passed some prenatal funding in the Medicare realm, and it's important, and I appreciate it, and I know they do too. The good news is that while I don't think this is quite ready yet, and I know our hospitals, our OBGYNs, and the hospitals are working on that plan, and I've been taking some pretty careful notes here, and I'd like to welcome the members who said that they really are in favor of this when they have a plan, and I'll be welcoming them to the fight. So right now on and against, but I know we're going to be able to push something through next time, thanks to all your good help. Thank you, Mr. President.
Let's go to Senator Jones.
Mr. President, I think we all agree that this is such an important topic, and there has been maternity wards closed in the neighboring counties by mine, but we don't have any information that this will even help them. I really need to know what the approach is, how we're gonna do this, what communities are gonna be saved by this. I just think there's way too many unanswered questions, and we need to make sure we get this right. It's very, very important for the state of Wyoming, and to just throw some money somewhere is not the right approach. We need to know what we're doing and funnel these dollars exactly where they need to go and help the communities that can sustain a maternity ward.
Thank you. Senator Scott, I saw you trying to get up last time, for your second time.
Yes. Mr. President, and continuing on and for the amendment, we do know that we've got a crisis developing from the closures that we've seen. We know, Mr. President, that one of the reasons is bad economics due to the declining birth rate. This amendment does give enough guidance, in my judgment, Mr. President, so it can be implemented. We know the targets, we know the purposes, as to what we're doing here. And, Mr. President, I fully support having a more careful look at the interim. But I suggest to you the interim committee will have a lot better job if it's trying to figure out how to keep what we've got as opposed to bringing back what we've lost. So for all those reasons, Mr. President, on and for the amendment.
Well, let's do Senator Barlow over here.
Thank you, Mr. President. On and for the amendment, for those that are interested in the priorities of the last interim, the first priority, maternity, healthcare, and childcare issues. A lot of time was spent on this issue, and it is a difficult issue. So potentially another interim is warranted. And we'll look forward to our management council deciding if that's appropriate. And certainly anybody that wants to participate and work outside of the Labor, Health, and Social Service Committee is welcome to as well. But I'll go back a few years. 2000, and I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker, or Mr. President, I couldn't get to the right year fast enough and pull up the, but this legislature sent out 20, 30 some $1 million to save hospitals, rural hospitals in our community. One of them's not very far from where I live. That hospital still operates, does not have OB services. It didn't then either, is my recollection, but the hospital is still there. So sometimes we have to actually throw a lifeline. And that was at a time, it wasn't, when things got maybe more difficult in healthcare during the early 2020s. This was 5 years before that. So we have thrown out lifelines. Those hospitals still operate. In fact, I would also, I believe that 2 hospitals have opened in this state since then, and a third is, on the way to being opened or going to begin its process. So healthcare, our communities value it. Sometimes it's okay for the legislature to throw out a lifeline for an entire service line or a particular service line because it strengthens that community. It sustains that community. It is life-giving in a community. So on and for the amendment. And Mr. President, the Labor, Health, and Social Service Committee stands ready to continue this work should the body so wish. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Barlow, there's only about 10 of you left that haven't spoke yet, so who's left? Senator Schuler.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm on and for this amendment. I know it's a lot of money, but I think it's an emergency. We've had these 2 hospitals in my area shut down, in Kemmer and Evanston. Those moms now have to travel over 100 miles to get to a hospital, and as the good, senator who is a nurse up here mentioned, some of them might have a heck of a time in the winter trying to get there. So I did meet with the CEO of one of the hospitals and just talked to him a little bit about, why they closed down their maternity care, 30 nurses down the hatch. They'll probably find jobs because we need nurses, obviously. Some of them will probably stay within the hospital, but part of it is the price of malpractice insurance for OBGYNs. That's why we're having a heck of a time getting them in Wyoming. They cost a lot. I had no idea that their insurance was as high as it was compared to a general practitioner, but that is one of the issues, which I'm not sure we can cure that. But in the meantime, I said to her, what if we have moms that can't travel to Salt Lake and Rock Springs, and even if the roads were good, could your ER doctors deliver some of these high-risk babies? And she said, they'll sure try. That doesn't work for me. If they can't get to Ogden or Salt Lake or Rock Springs or wherever the closest one is, we're gonna start maybe losing some little ones and maybe some others along the way. So I do believe it is an emergency. I believe it's something we need to take pretty serious. It is a lot of money, I agree. And maybe we can put some sideboards on it. I really do think it still needs to have some study within the Labor and Health Department. I'm really glad to hear the good chairman talk about that, but I think it is warranted. So I'm on and for the bill, the amendment.
On for the amendment. Any further discussion? Senator Hicks, let's see. That would be, you're on the list, yes, second time.
For my second time. So in my experience and the time down here, one of the worst things that we can do in government is fund a program one time, 1 year, and next year we come back and we just rip the scab off of it. So you get money this year, we build up a constituency base, we build up infrastructure, we build up personal and participation in that, and then we decide next year not to fund it. Or we fund it at half. And so we're just kicking the can down the road. This is why we need to be deliberative about this. We need to study. I don't know where 18 million, a question to my colleague that brought it, 18 million, is that based on what? How many hospitals, rural healthcare districts were surveyed? Where's the demand around the state? But I can guarantee you that if this is not funded again, it's one of the most cruel things that we can do in the legislature is make a promise to people that we're going to provide all these services and then it's gone the next year. And that's why it takes a little bit of deliberation. We come back, we understand what we're doing here, and we create a program. That's the right way to do things. Not just throw money out one time, build a constituency based on that appropriation, and then jerk it away from them.
Anybody else? Who else? Who's the sponsor? Oh, Rothfuss. Senator Rothfuss, bring us to lunch, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for the wonderful debate. Thank you, everyone, for the engagement, and even the folks that aren't going to support this amendment are clearly supportive of the concept, and I appreciate that. So that alone was a good discussion, but I do hope you'll support the amendment. You know, some of the concerns that are raised, and looking to my good friend, the most recent speaker, about it being one time, we need to do something now. We know from the good chairman of the Labor Health Committee that they've been looking at this. It's been well studied. It is understood, but maybe not understood as much as it needs to be. So a lot of work's gone into it, and while not all of us individually have all of the details, the Department of Health has been studying and understands this problem very well. Why would we do it now instead of putting together the comprehensive program and all the details and all the minutia and really getting it right, dotting our I's and crossing our T's? We lost one hospital just a few months ago, Evanston, right? We studied it. We had it as a #1 priority during the interim. We were studying it, literally. That was what we were doing while Evanston closed down. Kemmerer closed down a couple of years ago. Rollins and Riverton closed down within the last decade. We've been studying it, and it turns out that hasn't fixed the problem yet. This is an opportunity to provide some real resources. It's true that there are not a lot of details. That's a feature, not a bug. Because we need to figure out what the specific birthing centers, maternity centers, delivery centers need, depending on the community. There are currently 17 of them in the state that are active, down from 18 a short time ago. Perhaps there are communities that could be eligible that don't currently have a delivery center. If we're too prescriptive, it's going to be a negative consequence. But at the end of the day, I think what we should be focused on really is the importance of ensuring that we have access, because it does make a life or death difference in some occasions, right? We know that mortality and morbidity rates are much higher in rural situations where delivering mothers are far away from hospitals. That's indisputable. Anything we can do to mitigate one death, to mitigate one severe illness, is going to be worth it, but this offers a lot more than just that chance of one. This is going to make real difference to the lives of our hardworking people around the state, our rural community, and we have that opportunity now, and I welcome the Labor Health Committee participating in this process. If we pass this legislation, they'll work hand in glove with our Department of Health to figure out the right way to do it. I know they will. I know how that department works, and I know how our chairman works. It's going to be all right. Let's vote for it, Mr. President.
Chief Clerk will call the roll.
Third reading amendment number 7, roll call. Anderson? Aye. Barlow? Aye. Boner? Aye. Brennan? Aye. Case? No. Cooper? Aye. Crago? Aye. Crum? Aye. Dockstader? No. Driscoll? No. French? No. Guru? No. Hicks? No. Hutchings? No. Ide? No. Jones? No. Cole? No. Landon? No. Larson? No. McEwen? No. Nethercott? No. Olson? No. Pappas? Aye. Pearson? No. Rothfuss?
Aye.
Aye. Salazar? No. Schuler? Aye. Scott? Aye. Smith? No. Steinmetz? No. President Beitman?
No.
No. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. Third reading amendment number 7, 11 aye, 20 no.
Third reading amendment number 7 to Senate File 1 has failed. Madam Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. President, I move that we stand recessed until 2 p.m.
Okay, any announcements? Committee announcements, Senator Vice President Salazar.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Senate Appropriations Committee will be meeting at 12:30. In room 113, we'll be going over Senate File 123 School Finance, Competitive Grants for Crossing Guards, and Senate File 195 Small Business Emergency Bridge Loan. Also, Mr. President, your Appropriations Committee stands ready to meet upon adjournment for any re-referrals. So we'll keep that open. Thank you, Mr.
Well,
President.
thank you so much. Senator McEwen.
Committee number, Mr. President, thank you. Committee number 3 will meet at 12:30 in room number 6 to discuss Senate File 61, Pollution Control Property Tax Exemption Applicability, and Senate Joint Resolution 10, Legislative and Executive Authority Taxation and Spending. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any other committees meeting today? Seeing none. You've all heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Senate motion carries. The Senate will stand recessed until 2 p.m.